thank you for coming again to our little Q&A AMA today regarding military perks. If you've been here before for our last AMA, this is how it works. We're using the Discord stage channel feature. So if you have a question, just raise your hand and then we'll put you on the stage. You can ask your question, we'll give you the answers. If you don't have a microphone or you don't want to talk, then just drop it in chat and we'll collect questions and go through them. Okay, I turned requests on, so you should be able to ask questions now. Matt, do we want to say anything regarding military perks before we start taking questions, or should we just jump right in?
Yeah, I'm not sure if there's anything to say about it because we already posted a lot of news, and yeah. Let's just say we're almost done with the military perks, so we're at the point where we can answer actually almost any question regarding military perks.
All right, hands are coming in. So let's start with the first person. Let's bring AutoSits on here.
All right, I've got a pretty simple question. When will it release? When will we have the possibility to use the military perk?
Okay, I'll answer it. Our plan is basically roughly to release it in the next 2 weeks. Right now I have some echo here. Right now we're on schedule, but we can't guarantee it for sure because everything has to work. If there's like major issues or it just doesn't work balance wise, then we'll have to take more time to tweak it to like deliver not fully broken feature. But the plan is, and it looks good that it releases in the next 2 weeks.
All right, thanks.
Thank you for your question. In the meantime, hands went down again. I guess everybody had the same question. Then let's start with a question from chat. So Aringo Pro asks, will military perks have an effect on software? Matt,
Can I answer that one?
Yeah. Let me read the questions and you answer them from the chat.
So the question was, will military perks have an effect on software? Not the military perks directly, but parts of the stuff you unlock can influence the software. Just as a hint, the active path of the 3 choices you can make in military 4 will definitely influence the software.
But I think we should say that since military perks are another thing that you choose after each tier up, there's still going to be some fixed rewards or stuff that's bound to your military tier. Like, for example, the buildings that have a certain tier limit. So that stuff is not going to change. Just a few things are now military perks, or military perks is overall more a feature that lets you unlock new things.
You basically change how you progress, because if you say you want to progress via tower testing, you can choose perks that improve resource drops. If you want to focus on your town, then you can choose perks that improve how you progress in a factory, for example.
All right, I'll put the next person on to speak. Journalistic, you up next. Hello.
Hello. I have a question here. Can the factory crafter run during tower testing, and is it equivalent speed to the AI crafting?
Yes, crafting runs during tower testing and even while the game is closed. And its speed is, I wouldn't say as fast as the AI because it's limited to 5 actions per second. But it can use all machines in parallel. So basically, once you build a queue, it goes through the queues 5 times per second to check whatever it can create during that tick. So, for example, if it requires 4 machines, then it will use all of those 4 machines within 4 ticks.
Does that answer your question?
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next up, PKP24. Hello.
Will there be anything in the military perks that will increase the speed the AI runs naturally without using boost exec?
This won't be a military perk, but this is planned for a late AI upgrade because initially you unlock the AI via your software upgrade, and we have planned to add more upgrades to the AI that, for example, make actions that only change variables or stuff that does not affect the game. Basically, it removes the limit of one action per tick for those actions, and the later upgrade, for example, could increase the amount of actions it can do per tick to 5 actions. So yes, it is planned that there will be upgrades for the AI, but it's not going to be in the military perk update.
Okay.
Does that answer your question?
Sure.
Okay.
I guess it did, since he immediately left.
Okay.
Let's take another question from chat, because there's a bunch of them now. Are we gonna absorb or start with a Dyson Sphere perk? Before you answer that, maybe can you talk a little bit about the different specializations and what that means?
You mean in general?
In general, yeah.
Okay, so basically, once you reach military tier 4, you can choose to specialize on either the mine, the factory, or the power plant, depending on how you want to play. The power plant will be the active path. It will focus on progressing via tower testing. The factory will, basically focus on the factory, so you can basically boost your offline resource production and your idle production. And the mine will be somewhat in between those both buildings. Basically, the Dyson Sphere is the most simple of the 3 buildings, most simple to use, and will have immediate payoffs once you unlock it. The factory, for example, on the other hand, will take a while until you can efficiently use the crafter, since you have to scan all items in order to use them. But once you have basically scanned every item, you can auto-craft whatever you want, even while the game is closed. So it provides a huge idle advantage.
All right, and for the question, basically it is, do you absorb the sun when you build the Dyson Sphere, or does it stay?
Well, it stays. You're just building around it.
All right. The next question is, will military perks change the game so much that I won't need to replay the game till the update to actually farm infinities to get the stones and all? Guess it's a bit of a spoiler as well, but...
I mean, technically you won't need to replay the game, but in order to fully experience the military perks, it would be a good idea to just start a second save or so, just to try how the early game progression changes. Because if you're in the current end game, you can probably unlock everything within a day, or within a few hours. Depends on how far you are in the end game.
Yep, for sure. You can definitely start and unlock everything and then get on the content. So the update really changes the progression from early to mid game. Late game, not so much. There's a few things in there, but if you really want to experience the change, then that would be in a new game. Then the next question we kind of already answered. Will there be new software with military perks? Not directly. Like, military perks themselves don't provide new software, but we might add more software in general for military tiers. Let's hear from another person on the stage. Mudkip, I invited you to speak. Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
What's your
So,
question?
when will I be able to push townspeople off my island? Like, to kill them?
To kill, probably never. But I played around with the idea of adding this feature. Maybe if you played like Dungeon Keeper or something like that in the past, where you can actually pick them up or give them a little slap to move them. But it's really just an Easter egg, so no promises if that ever makes it into the game.
Okay, thank God I'll finally be able to push tourist box into a box.
Yeah, just pick it up and drop it somewhere. I think that would be fun to play around with them. So that's something that I played around with the idea and even technically played around a bit, but right now we have to focus on other things, so we'll see. Do you have another question for us?
No.
All right, then thank you. Foster, you're up next. Hello, welcome.
Hello. My question is, what's the deal with the other military perks? You've talked a whole bunch about the specializations, and we know a fair amount about 2 or 3, but we don't know a whole lot about the details of the smaller perks. So what's the deal with that?
The small perks will basically be like little boosts that generally improve things like, just to give a random example, before the military perk update, there was a reward for, I think it started at military perk 7 or 8 or something like that, where modules started at maximized tier 1. For example, this will move into a perk. So you get very early the chance to start with maximized modules, and it will not become, also it won't turn into 5 perks, it will just become 2 perks. The first perk will set your modules to maximized tier 1, every new military tier, and the second one just omits upgrading modules by setting everything to tier 5. So you only have to upgrade the infinite modules. And the military perks are basically grouped in groups of 3. So for every section with 3 military perks, you can choose one of 3. So once you reach the end of the section, you basically have all of them. So this way you can't lock yourself out of progression.
Yes, basically the first choice you have 3, then you have for the second 2, then for the third you have the remaining, then you have your specialization, and then you get 3 new choices basically. And for the other perks, I think we can talk a little about it, but nothing's set in stone. Like we added, I think like 10 already, and we're playing around with it, but it's not certain that they will actually stay for the military update. But something like we want to fill some gaps that we have in the game right now. For example, there was nothing that boosts town XP or like town level gain, so there's a military perk for that, and like a few others that specialize in those things that are kind of a gap in the game right now. Does that answer your question?
Yep, thanks.
Thank you for the question. All right, Tech, come on, you're next.
Real factory hours. Okay, so it's regarding the workers and also the new crafter. Okay, cool. I have some echo. So, will we be able to increase how much they can do per action? Like currently, the workers are only able to extract up to 1 of tier X or so the limit per worker action is currently 1 tier 10 or. We'll be able to increase that with the factory military perks.
You will get 2 additional ways to get factory ores. One will be related to the mine, and one will be related to a second machine in the factory you will unlock. I'm not sure if we've already spoiled it, but I think it's already mentioned in the posts. It's the mass fabricator. Basically, in the end game, this will omit generating resources via the ore refiner.
Okay,
So,
good.
answer your question?
And for military perks themselves, that's also another perk that you get more workers, but not necessarily that they have different actions. Just more, that you can assign more of them.
Yeah. Also, I think we have to mention the military perk update will not just release military perks. You will basically get a lot of content in various places around the game. For example, just to give a random example, the power plant will receive a lot more upgrades for all components. Workers will receive a lot more tasks, and yeah, basically a lot of content around various locations in the game, like more modules, more. Yeah.
Some worker tasks seem very underwhelming compared to others.
Which tasks, for example?
Well, for example, the mining tasks. They're like you need to assign a lot of tasks to do something meaningful compared to other tasks like the lab one, which basically automate an entire section of the game, like watering plants. It's very strong.
Yeah. Well, that's pretty hard to balance because the only way to let's say make them equal in that part would be to give them the ability to harvest an entire grid within one tick. But this could, on the other hand, make them too powerful if you factor in offline progression or something like that. Yeah, it depends. We'll probably change a lot of things before releasing the version 1 of the game. But yeah, the laboratory has 12 experiments, and if you have to assign 1 worker for each experiment, then it's 12 workers too there. But yeah, for worker tasks, it's pretty hard to make them all equally good.
I'll leave the stage to another people.
Thank you for your questions. Epicness.
Okay, is factory going to get a change at all? Because I know some people who complain about factory being too grindy and time consuming.
It depends what kind of change do you mean? I mean the second floor already changes how factory is going to work.
They complain about like having to refine stuff like producers, and that sometimes producers take too long, and like some stuff like how some machines like the boiler take like a stupid amount of resources, like 4 blocks. Just stuff like that.
I mean the recipes are not 100% fixed yet, so they might change before the final release of the game. But the boiler will receive a special role when it comes to the mass fabricator in the second floor. That's what I can tell.
Okay.
Yeah, and I mean, just from testing alone, I noticed with the crafter, basically the factory becomes a building where you just have to check it once every few hours or so, because you can just say, okay, craft me like 10,000 instances of this item, and then you just let it run and come back once everything's done.
Okay.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Great.
Then let's go through a few of the chat questions before we take on the next person to come to stage. Coco asks, will the rubber trees produce more than, something that's a late game spoiler? You know what I mean? And what they mean?
It depends on if we're going to change the thing that's marked as a spoiler here. But it's not, if you're able to use the thing that's spoiled here once every hour, then the perk is going to be stronger.
So basically, we'll balance it and adapt it.
Yeah.
All right.
Because the like mentioned in the post, the rubber tree farm is not going to produce only rubber.
Okay, Jerona is asking, can you reset military perks, or are they a permanent choice?
Could you repeat that? What's the question?
Can you reset military perks, or is it a permanent choice?
Currently, the way it's designed, you're not going to be able to reset, because the effect is basically like choosing a class in an RPG, for example. It would be like changing a class mid-game, because you could lose progress in various areas of the game. But if it turns out that this causes too many problems, then we're probably going to add a way to reset, but it will have the downside of resetting the entire building that's affected by a perk. And regarding the smaller perks in between, we'll have to see how it turns out, because basically you can't lock yourself out of progress, since the military perks are something you get additional to the things you have now. So it's not going to get a lot harder to progress. The perks are going to make the game easier. So in the worst case scenario, you just have to progress by doing something else instead of the way you progress regularly.
I think that answers that. Then Aringo Pro asks, is the speed buff that you can see in the Dyson Sphere screenshot, is it going to exceed more than ×3?
Currently not. I even have to test if ×3 works, or if there are too many bugs, like, for example, enemies warping into the tower and the tower is instantly dying because of that. So there's a lot more testing required, if even ×3 works, or if we have to change it to something else. But what you see in the screenshots is not something final. The full first version of the Dyson Sphere will have 9 different buffs or boosts in that case, and yeah, they will affect more than just the things they're currently shown. Basically, the things that were in the screenshot were just tests to test the boosts.
Right. And another question by Ringo Pro is the Fabricator more aimed at late game players? Because it seems pretty powerful.
Yes, the Crafter is basically immediately available. The Fabricator requires a bit more investment to get useful.
Era asks, are military perks going to be as expensive as Light Electricity Experiment? Don't quite understand the question as well.
Expensive? I mean, they're free. So once you get to the next military tier, you can choose one. So they don't cost anything.
Yeah, there's no, you need this much resources to get them. It's just you prestige and then you choose one. Or you can choose later if you want. Onion Bread asks, is the Dyson Sphere going to be related to a new sort of prestige system past infinity?
New sort of prestige system past infinity. Not really, no. Basically, you can unlock the Dyson Sphere. The earliest point at which you can unlock it is military tier 4.
Yeah, and then it basically has it has to have value early on in the game, right? So it can't be something that you really use for late game only. Xanos asks, since there's going to be a perk for town experience, how powerful will it be?
Not too powerful, so you won't burst through the maximum town level at the moment. But if anyone reaches the maximum town level, we're definitely going to increase it, if that ever happens.
Alright, I guess that answers that. Gerona asks, can we choose how much ore we put in machines with the military perks update?
How much ore we put into machines with the military perks update? What do you mean with how much ore you put in machines? I mean, you can just put as much ore into the machine as much as you want. Or is that referring to some worker setting?
I'm also checking, it might be referring to workers, but I don't know. It's hard to find when you have the questions out of context. Alright. Let's continue with bringing people on the stage again. Otto is back to talk to us. Welcome back.
Factory crafter have the possibility to up tier your dust. Like you have only 2 dust tier 2, but you want to craft a machine, so you need more, but you have plenty dust 1.
Actually have to test how it behaves now, because currently if you request a recipe, it checks if it has the ingredients, and if any are missing, then it adds them to the queue, the parts that are missing. So in theory, if dusts are missing, it adds the lamp recipe to the queue. And
Okay.
if the lamp recipe is on the queue, technically it requires dust.
But the lump is not the resource used in the crafting and afterwards, so it would have another stat required.
Yeah,
Converting the lump into dust
through,
again.
Yeah, it goes through machine recipes and crafting recipes. Yeah, the name is a bit confusing because it's called crafter, but it also checks through machine recipes.
All right.
Yeah, because I think have we posted a screenshot in the Patreon channel? I'm not sure. Where the producer, where the crafter was building some tier 1 producers, and it automatically put the screws into the queue, and automatically added the sticks and then the ingots.
Ah, all right. Gonna check there. Thanks.
Yeah. You're welcome.
All right. Buddy, you're up next with probably the hard questions.
Mr. Million Exotic Producers has arrived. So I have a total of 11 questions. I'm going to ask half of them now, half of them probably later on.
Okay.
So first off, for the power plant, the Dyson Sphere, do you have plans to make it so that you can have every single bonus maxed out at the same time, or you have to choose from 3 of the 9?
You will be able to have all of them. Like I mentioned, there will be a total of 9, and it's going to work like this. Basically, you can boost one actively. The one that we are boosting is increasing with power. It's going to fill with Dyson power. If you stop boosting it, it's slowly going to fade away. And yeah, each ring you build around the Dyson Sphere can be used to lock a boost in its current stage. So basically, once you have all rings, you can boost the last boost and lock all the others. And this way you have basically all boosts maximized.
All right, that sounds good. Also, little side comment on something that you mentioned a while ago about hidden recipes in the factory. Are you actually planning on doing that as like an Easter egg, or did you cancel that?
I think hidden recipes will basically be part of the military perk update. I'm just going to mention the robotry farm here. So we're going to need the feature to hide recipes in the recipe view and to later enable them once you unlock them.
All right, so I'll take that as a half yes.
Okay.
Next question that I'm pretty sure half the people here are very interested in is the mine's second floor. What do you have on that?
Okay, should we I have to ask Speed that should we spoiler it already or not?
I mean,
I mean the patrons already know it. Actually, you already know it, buddy.
I only know a fraction because my Patreon ran out like 4 days ago and I haven't been able to get it back. I'm sad.
Oh.
I think we can say the general what it's about. Since it's not fully implemented, who knows? So we're gonna change, so not too much in detail, but I think a general overview is fine.
Okay. So the second floor in the mine will basically be asteroid mining. So you will have to scan, yeah, basically the near orbit around the planet for asteroids and yeah, mine them and harvest some special stuff from it. That's the general overview. Yeah, so in a nutshell, power plant is a Dyson sphere, factory is crafter, mass fabricator, and robotry farm, and mine is asteroid mining. It sounds like the factory is a lot more content, but in the end, the stuff in the factory is not going to boost the factory directly. It's just going to make a lot of things easier and faster. So the choice is going to be hard at Military T4 once you see what the other two provide.
All right. So one last question before I'll get going. What's the
Okay.
requirement for military tier 16? I just want to know what it currently requires and know that's going to be changed in the future.
Well, for that we would spoil what's Military 16 to 20 is about. And I'm not sure if we should do that because
Yeah, I think we can't. Because then we
So
also
it actually does have a requirement that's going to be permanent in it.
I mean, as much as we can say is that you'll have to defeat boss 5. I think that's something we can say. Other than that, you just gotta wait for the military tier 15 update.
All right.
I mean, what we can
Now
spoil
I'm
is
even more curious.
okay. The only thing I can say is that basically the endings. I'll quote this here. The ending cinematic of the game will basically reveal everything.
All right, now I'm more excited for that.
Yeah, and I guess we can like when you quote stuff, we can also take the quote from the Patreon channel the other day, where basically someone said that boss 5 is going to be like the Ender Dragon in Minecraft. I mean, you beat it, you basically ended the game, you did the storyline, but there's more afterwards. And that's kind of how it is in Perfect Tower as well.
Yeah, actually, this was a good quote.
Yeah, I know it's a good quote. I'm glad I said it.
If you have any other questions, right now there's no raised hands. We have a few more chat questions, but if you want to ask
That's all my
anything
questions
else,
for now.
right.
I'll ask my other ones later.
All right, then thank you for coming on stage, and we'll go through the rest of the questions in chat. Oh, I think that's a good question. Sunny asks, will the military specializations scale with your military tier?
It's a good thing that you mentioned module drop chance in this question.
I guess if
I'm not sure
if you're gonna answer that part, then we should read the full question as well. So the full question is, will the military specializations scale with your military tier? And then the add-on was because module dropchance seems very useful if the power plant is specialized on military tier 12 instead of being able
Useless.
to.
It seems very useless. You said useful.
Sorry, it's useless. Yeah, at military tier 12 instead of when you get it earlier.
I mean, should we reveal its skill or not? Or that perk?
I think we can. Yeah, it's going to stay. I think.
Okay. I mean, it's definitely going to stay.
So
It might only move to different parts of the game. But yeah, there will be a military perk that makes your module drop chance multiply your resource drops directly. So yes, it will even be useful in late game. Yeah, and regarding scaling with your military tier, yes, most of them will either scale with your town level or with the rest of your progress in the game, or yeah. So most of the skills you choose either affect later military tiers or are influenced by some other things. So far, I'm just going through a list here. There is, apart from the module starting at the max tier, there's nothing that does not scale with your progress. And yeah, that's only 2 perks, and yeah.
We have to clarify that's generally the military perks. And my question was specific about specializations, but I guess that's general for military perks that they are useful even late game.
Oh yeah, military specializations. Yeah. There will be a few upgrades that, for example, I'm currently thinking of locking behind a certain part of each building behind military tier 6, so that the choice in military tier 4 and yeah, will be even more important because
Yeah, I think
like
I think we don't have to go too much into details here. In general, yeah, it will scale, and the specializations will have some content locked behind a later tier, so that if you choose, for example, the power plant on military tier 4, you still get some additional stuff later on. So you don't unlock the full second floor. But that is something that Matt is currently looking at. Alright, Void asks, what kind of resources can we get with the trees aside from just rubber?
that's something I don't want to spoil because there are probably going to be a bunch of Easter eggs there. So you'll have to try to plant whatever you find in the game. Just to say that in advance, yes, there will be rubber tree saplings, but there might be things that are not saplings that you can plant.
Alright, another question that we can't answer. What mechanics will boss 5 bring? Because you just have to wait and see.
I just can confirm that it's already 2/3 done. And Speedy can confirm that too because he has already seen what is there.
Xenos asks a question that's kind of already answered with before. Will late game things that might become obsolete because of second floors make second floors obsolete be reworked to interact with the update? Guess we kind of answered it also with AI task before, where the factory packages might not be as useful anymore because you can do that in the second floor. Or some stuff from the second floor doesn't seem very useful late game. I guess the general question if we balance around that and if we're gonna change things that become weaker or obsolete with the update.
Do you want to say something to that or?
Yes.
Oh, I thought you were just explaining. Yeah.
Well, I mean, in a way,
I mean.
I just want to say, in a way, the question is already like an answer in itself. Because we're not gonna leave useless things around, and we're always balancing it, so.
Yeah, also after the military perk update, we can finally say, okay, there is a content cut. Okay, this is all the content that will be in version number 1, and we can finally start with basically linking everything together. So I don't consider the shipyard rework, for example, as a major thing, because military perks are literally a huge thing we planned really early on, but didn't come around to implement it. And since this is something you hit pretty fast in the game, hit it pretty soon. I mean, the first time you tier up your military tier, you'll notice that there's something missing because gems couldn't be the entire reward. So that's a core part of the game that needs to be implemented. And once that is in, we can say, okay, from basically the core of the game is done, and we can finally start polishing things and making things consistent, and yeah,
and even start balancing.
yeah.
Era asked, are we gonna create exotic producers with the crafter? And how long will it take?
That depends on how many resources you have. Once you craft exotic producers, it will basically put all the ingredients into the queue. I still have to check if this causes any problems, because there has to be a limit on the queue, because otherwise you can't just break your save game by just choosing to craft one. Because if you choose to craft an item, it creates a pop-up and you can say how many how often you want the crafter to create that item. And if you choose one, it puts a queue of all the requirements into the crafter for one instance of the final product. And if you do that multiple times, you can basically just blow up your save game by adding trillions of things to the queue. I was already thinking of merging similar things in the queue, but the problem is then, what if you want to cancel a part or something like that, or want to split them up so you can see which parts are used for what? Yeah, we still have to that's why it requires some testing in order to answer that. But yeah, just to summarize the answer, yes, it's going to be able to craft exotic producers.
Right, Gizmo asks, will you need power from the power plant to make the crafter work, or will it just work?
What was the question?
Do you need power from the power plant to make the crafter work?
Nope. Crafter works just from the beginning, but you have to invest some items and resources into it to get it working. And you already you also have to pay the cost of crafting each item. So the crafter is not going to craft the things for free; they will still drain the normal crafting cost. And that's also changed. We might rebalance how many resources it takes to craft something in order to match with the rest of the game, because with the crafter, the factory could become too powerful in early game. So we might have to adjust a few costs.
All right. Xella asks, will there be more skills / exotic skills for the second floor of the buildings?
Yes and no. Yes, we've played around with the idea of adding skills for the second floor, and no, probably not in the first release of the military perks, because we're too short on time to think of enough useful skills for that.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's basically.
Yeah, but I want to add something to that, because it has been suggested already on Steam before, like to add, well, I guess it was more of a question to add more skills for the second floor, and it was originally not planned, but we are considering it. So that's why it's not going to be in the military perk release, but maybe afterwards we'll add some skills that are focused on the second floor that you unlock once you unlock the second floor. But no promises on that. Foster asks, what's the deal with the second mine floor? Are you just gonna add Minecraft at this point? We already answered what the second floor actually is, so I guess we can skip that, but I thought it's kind of funny. Alright. Era asked, can workers take care of military perks? I guess the question is if they can choose the perks, I assume?
To care about military perks. I mean, I'm not sure if that's necessary, because why would you want a worker to choose your military perks? That's an important decision. But yeah, there will definitely be worker task for the second floor. I think, I'm not sure if you already mentioned that, but for example, in the second floor of the power plant, you will get a worker task that will construct and launch the Dyson drones for you.
Yeah, so I guess if we take this question as will you be able to interact with second floor stuff with the will the workers be able to interact? Then yes. Xena says, how are you going to explain that we get the Dyson sphere before the military tier named Dyson sphere?
Oh, yeah, we are already in the process of renaming that military tier. because it's now a thing. Oh, yeah, I just checked. I already renamed it. You're going to see into the next bill. So,
Which is when if everything works out, is going to launch tomorrow, by the way. So you can probably look forward to an update, like a small update again, but an update.
what's the next question?
Also kind of funny one. Avingo Pro asks, how do we explain that you can get to the last regions, universe, and military tier later on? Military tier 14 is space travel, even though you went to universe before. So I guess in general, yeah. Go on.
Well, before that we didn't send cubes to space. We're just sending drones there. So asteroid mining and the dice sphere will both be built and mined via drones.
And what about exploring region 14, which is universe, before even getting to military tier 14, which is space travel?
Well, the tower is a lot heavier than the drones, so I think most of you already know how much a module weighs. So 51 modules. Gonna need a large rocket for that. So yeah, we'll find something to explain that.
Okay, Panic asks, is there any reason to push Infinity now? Or will the game change something soon so we don't have to run 24-hour runs?
I'm not sure about the soon part, but yeah, since military T15 is in the works, I can just confirm that there will be no need to run the game 24/7. Yeah. But regarding the soon part, currently the whole focus is on to get the military perks out, and yeah, the problem with my hardware put us a lot behind schedule. First the graphics card and then the RAM. But I'm happy to be back at a regular working pace now.
Until something else breaks.
Yeah.
All
I'm
right.
already scared that once the mainboard breaks, I'm not sure what I'm going to do then.
Well, first the hard disk and then the mainboard.
Oh.
All right. Senus asked a question that he doesn't want us to answer anymore, but we're still going to. Will there be a sacred rubber tree that breaks for the ceiling of the factory? Kind of reference to Minecraft here. You know the ones from Minecraft, right?
Yeah. I know the ones that can break a sky factory if I accidentally create one or get one as a random draw. Depends. I mean, the rubber tree farm is a huge room for Easter eggs, so I think we're going to collect everything in a huge pool and then just randomly draw something from it.
Seems fair at this point. Next question is, will there be any new special producers in the future?
Yes, there are some ideas for endgame producers, even more endgame producers than what there's currently now, but nothing definite at the moment. But when it comes to modding, the API for producers is quite open, so you can basically let producers do anything, not just produce resources. So worst part would be that modding will introduce the first different types of producers, but there are some plans to add more producers, special producers to the factory.
All right. We'll have a few more questions, and then I think we have to wrap up because Matt has to go soon. Charona asks, when we will add all exotic skills that are missing right now, basically. So like for a time frame.
It's also a difficult question because, for example, in the lab, we first need to refactor all the lab experiments and replace them with replace the placeholder experiments with some actual experiments. So that's going to be a hard one. For the statue of Cubus, there are some ideas, and regarding skills in the laboratory, I think we already mentioned that. There will probably be some kind of generic skills, like, for example, time boost, and then a list with all the experiments that are affected and what kind of things they affect, or a production boost. And just to give a random example, a production boost skill could, for example, increase production by 25% in the fire experiment and in the neutral experiment. I'm not saying that this is like the skill is going to be, but just an example. So the laboratory will probably get some skills also, so some skills that affect all or multiple experiments. And regarding time frame,
Like,
yeah, it's hard to give an exact time frame on that.
I guess the only thing that we can say is that will be gradually added over time when we touch certain areas of the game. So it's something that there's an exotic skill coming in one update, and then 2 updates later another one, and not all at once. So it will be gradually added. Right, let's move on to the next question, which is, how do you access military perks? Is it another icon in the town?
Yes. Not sure if we are going to keep it the way it is, but probably the icons on the right will turn into some sort of what are they called? Drop out menus, where you click on them and then you get a line of icons next to them. And we're probably going to group the customization stuff and other things too.
Yeah.
So for example, there will be a customization tab. You click on it, and then you have 3 icons for tower customization, town customization, and yeah, whatever comes afterwards.
It's basically that's something that we're playing around with. We want it to be accessible from the town like everything else, but since we're running out of space on the right, we're trying different things to group stuff or to move, like for example the help button, Dr. Cubicle somewhere else. But yeah, the plan is to access it directly from the town.
In worst case scenario, we can remove the gaps between the icons and then it will fit in there. So that's always the fallback solution.
Google asks something that we already answered, which is, since we're getting more worker tests, are we also going to get more workers? Yes, one of the military perks is going to give you more workers. And Foster asks, we've seen how some of the UI for the military perk screen looks. Will we get a remake for some of the older UI? Feels a bit out of place in contrast to the cool new ones.
Yes, this is already in the roadmap. So basically, once we're feature complete, we'll start with the polishing and refactoring of all the UIs. That's why the trading post currently is a bit, sticks out a bit. Because the trading post already has parts of the new style elements, but we're definitely getting a rework. Going to be new. Okay, we can basically quickly go through all of them.
Yeah, let's go let's go quickly through them, and then I think Buddy's waiting to ask some of the additional questions that he has.
Are going to be new achievements? Yes. Definitely. Will the museum track offline time as playtime?
That doesn't really make sense to me.
I mean, I think it's the total stat for the total time. I mean, technically it's possible. We just need to record a timestamp at the beginning of the save.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure if there already is one. I think there's only one for a timestamp for when it's saved last time, but I don't think there's one for the creation date.
Not so sure. At least for clouds, it's definitely saved. I don't know if it's in the save game itself though. But that's something that we could show, but it's not really that useful as a stat.
Okay, the next one is an arcade question.
I'll leave it out for now. You'll probably see a change with the military perk update, but it's not done yet.
No producer that produces other producers, but you can make a mod for that. You can basically create a producer that creates producers. Tower test. If my tower on tower testing is a clone, where's the main tower? Technically speaking, there is no main tower. You just have a blueprint of your tower, and every time you start tower testing, you get a new one until it's destroyed. We can agree upon the point that if you exit around before the tower dies, you keep your tower.
So basically, your goal is to create the perfect tower. So if they fail, they go on, new tower comes in, new strategy. I think that's a more a question that will take longer to answer. Will you guys make it so that you can save and quit out of tower testing run and still have all your progress when you join back? Kind of resume where you left off.
I mean, there would be a lot of things that we have to sync afterwards, and a lot of stuff that we would have to serialize because a bunch of the physics and NavMesh logic is stored inside Unity's classes, and I think the only way to get them out of there or to store them is to serialize them. And yeah, we don't want to have to rely on that. So the goal is rather to add more features that allow you to either start mid-run or, like for example, if you take a critical wave jump for an example, this basically omits the feature to start at a specific wave when it comes to getting back to your previous progress. We just need to add something like that, but for the wave acceleration speed. But yeah, we're going to address that in future updates. And like mentioned before, the goal is not to make you sit straight for several hours. So there will be more ways to accelerate stuff.
All right, I quickly gonna answer the last two questions from chat. Cats or dogs? Definitely cats.
Yeah.
Why is there a favorite conversion rate town perk? If it like that town perk is most likely gonna change with the arcade, because that section of the arcade is something that I still have to talk to Matt about, but I have a plan of how it's going to change. So the town perk is most likely gonna change as well. And then one more question from Potato, who has, or basically who wants us to implement a zoom functionality in the Infinity perk menu or the military perk menu.
Yep. I think we already have that as a ticket, or? Is that already not addressed?
I don't know, we have a lot of suggestions on that list. But yeah, something that we can definitely add, and it's something that I've been missing in the military perks, actually. Okay, let's quickly bring in Buddy to ask his last questions, and then I think we have to close it.
All right. So I have 5 questions remaining. One of them I kind of already have an answer to. It was, I was going to ask you if you could earn chat XP inside the AMA chat, but like 4 people have leveled up in there, so the answer is yes.
Yes, you can.
Next, for leaderboards, any updates on how those are coming along?
Basically, there's a few things on kind of security side or like a traffic side that we have to figure out, but they're, I would say they're 60% done, like the new leaderboards. But right now, that's on hold because of the military perks update. So it would come out with that, and possibly afterwards with the military tier 15 update. That's probably when it launches.
Okay, so next question. Museum statistics. Do you have any plans to make it so you can see your statistics before you have the museum built?
Yes, we had this plan. I don't know if we're still going to do it. Basically, I had the idea that you have a certain cube that's in your town and that waits in your town and collects all your statistics, and then says, "Oh, build me a museum," and then basically unlocks all the other things. So that's a plan that we had. I don't know if we're still going to implement it.
You could just put it as an icon on the side along with all the other things like hints, mill or town perks and that stuff. That's another place you could put it, but
Technically speaking, yes, should be possible. This would be another thing that we can group under a stats sub menu if you decide to implement the small sub menus on the right.
alright, so next question. The profile tab in the arcade that's hidden. Have you been doing any progress on that?
Will probably also not stay in the arcade. Like in general, there will be a section for the leaderboards and kind of online stuff that's more towards competitive in a sense of comparing with each other, and possibly maybe after version 1 additional things like guilds or something like that. But it's not going to stay in the arcade. So yeah, the arcade is basically changing a lot, or actually getting implemented, I would say.
Alright, so one last question. Do you have any plans to make the water experiment not as bad as it is? Because I think it beat the gem experiment on the most hated experiment.
Because it's so slow, or?
Yeah, it's I'm not exactly sure why, but everyone in the Discord just hates the water experiment.
Yeah, because there's no water task at the moment for it. Because once you have a worker task for it, you don't have to do anything actually after you set it up.
Well, I think a problem that I have with it personally is that you have to kind of choose certain prestiges, otherwise takes forever to progress at all.
I can agree on that.
But I guess
prestige thing is going to change.
Yeah, I guess we'll see. It needs some rebalancing probably. Right, buddy, do you have another question?
No, that's all for me.
All right, then thank you. I'll quickly bring on Tech, so he can ask something, and then we're gonna close this.
Yeah. Tier 11 and Tier 12 ore. We know they exist somewhere, but are they planned for some time?
What tier 11 or 12?
Well, I remember there was a bug that caused refining to give sometimes Tier 11 and Tier 12 ore, and I just wanted to know if they were actually getting implemented for real at one point.
Yeah, that was actually a bug because there are 12 shard colors, and it searches for it basically registers the rewards via the item ID, and since there are no ores for tier 11 or 12, it basically was stuck on that. Yeah, you couldn't restart the refining because it thought there were still shards or ores left. Currently, there are no plans for more tiers at the moment, but yeah, it's technically just another ore tier that we could add.
Okay, good.
All right, thank you for the question. Well, and that's all for today. Thank you all for coming and for asking all the questions. If you feel like there's something unanswered and you have follow-up questions, maybe people listening to this later on, just drop it in on Steam comments, like Steam forum or in our Discord server, and we're happy to answer anything that's unclear. Right, Matt, anything else you want to add to this?
No, I think everything has been said.
All right, then thank you all for coming and hope to see you around.